Hello, I'm your host, Chris Crossroads, and welcome to Fantasia Way, where we discuss the why behind the way we weave stories. Hello, travelers. Welcome to Fantasia Way. In this episode, I will be interviewing Tim Matheny, an Associate Dean of the Noonkester School of Arts and Letters and Chair of the Department of Theater and Communication at William Carey University. Due to the length of the interview, I decided to separate the conversation into two episodes. This one focuses on the questions I asked Mr. Matheny about theater. I hope you enjoy our discussion. Thank you so much for being willing to meet with me today.
Glad to be with you.
So, what made you want to work in theater?
Well, that journey kind of started later than some people. Some people, from their childhood or from grade school or, high school, they were involved in theater. And I never really was involved in theater through high school or any of that. I did through my church do some skits, and we had our puppet ministry and all that kind of stuff. So I had some experience of performing, but it was never just anything more than just something I enjoyed doing with them. It wasn't until I got to college at William Carey that I was actually here as a religion major, double major in religion and English, and my intention was to go to teach or to be a missionary. And while I was at Carey, some of my best friends were theater people, and I enjoyed going to see them in their shows and stuff like that. And so by the spring of that first year, one of my friends said, "Why don't you just come and help us? We need somebody to help us with some props. It's real simple." And so all I had to do was just make a fake cake and stuff like that, and prepare it each night so they could cut a slice of cake but not have to make a whole cake each time. And I enjoyed the process enough that the next show was a children's show, and I thought I would jump into it. So for The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, I played they changed the dwarf to an oaf, so I was a big guy, and so I was just this big dumb guy, and I loved every second that I was on stage. And so shortly after that, I decided I was going to just change everything. I stayed as kind of a religion minor, but I changed my major to theater, and I never really turned back. I never really had the desire to want to go off to be in Hollywood or New York or any of that kind of stuff. I really wanted to be a teacher to train people that would do that. And so that's kind of always been sort of my life's goal, to help people, whether that be through missions or through ministry or through teaching.
Nice. What are some of your favorite plays that you have worked on?
That's a tough one. So as a director or an artist, a lot of times what you'll get is a stock answer of whatever I'm working on right now, and that's true, because whatever you're working on at the moment becomes sort of your life. To do art, it really has to be something that you love enough that it just absorbs you. It should be the thing that when you're in doing another task, whether you're in class or you're having to do another job or something like that, your heart and your mind's always thinking, "I just can't wait to get back to start working on that project," whatever that project may be. I guess if I were to look back, some ones that were special to me, I'm a big fan of Arthur Miller, so I love anything Arthur Miller. One of my favorite plays is All My Sons, and so I had the opportunity to direct that a few years back, and it was a good experience. There's a play called Argonautica that cast was just a special moment with that cast. It was a lot of people that were graduating that were very special to me, and some new people that had come in that I just had grown very fond of. It was a good, hard-working experience. And then I think there was a production that I did of Crimes of the Heart, and that one was special just because the cast was so unique in that we cast it before Christmas break. And when I told them, "Here's your scripts," and stuff like that, when we came back, the very first rehearsal that we did, I said, "We're going to come back and we're going to jump straight into blocking the show." And when we got back, I said, "Okay, well, let's get up and start blocking." Well, they didn't take their books with them, and I said, "You're going to need your books to write in. It's still rehearsal." And they were like, "Well, we're off book." And I was like, "You're off book?" For the entire show, they were already off book when they came in for the first rehearsal. And so that whole rehearsal process, that whole 4 weeks of developing that show was so special because there was no having to try to wrote memory lines. We just worked on character development, really fine-tuning moments, and it ended up being a really, really great show. So
that sounds like so much fun.
Yeah.
Having a group of actors who are just absolutely ready to start doing stuff off book right when you start is
and just like I think it's Tom Hanks that said, come to every rehearsal with a head full of ideas and ready to explore, and that's you get those special moments where there's a whole cast that's just they're eager for it and they're ready for it and they're loving every minute of it. And so when they come in and they get excited enough that they have ideas, that becomes fun. I love the collaborative aspect of it.
So, the main topic for this episode is about theater and film, and essentially, as creatives, why should we choose one or the other? So, one of the main questions I want to ask is, what is it that you think that theater does better or differently than film that makes it a unique experience, separate from film?
Yeah. Well, and with your statement there, which one is better and why do we choose? I really think it's both and than an either or, because they are different mediums. They both tell stories. They both are visual. They're both in similar ways. Obviously, film sort of coming out of theater as far as sort of generations, but I really do think there's space enough for both and.
Absolutely. For
theater, and the differences between what makes theater better than film to me, I think, is the same reason why people will pay, big dollars to go see a live concert, as opposed to, well, I can just listen to it on Spotify, and it's clearer, and it's you want to be in the presence of the actor. There was an old show on public television that was called Egg, I think was the name of it. It was like an arts and science type show. Really interesting, but they would do these little small informational bits at the end before they were going into commercial. And one of them was Caesar, a little cartoon of Caesar at the point where he's being stabbed by the rest of the Senate, and he goes, "Et tu, Brute," and you see the words coming out of his mouth, and then they talk about how the Earth is a closed environment. So with the atmosphere, it's closed, so molecules get recycled. And they did the math that the breath and the molecules within a breath to say "Et tu, Brute" dispersed out into the world and recycle and stuff like that. I think it was something like 1 out of every 8 breaths that you take, you're probably taking in a molecule that Caesar then spoke the words "Et tu, Brute," which is like mind-boggling, right? So then when we're in the presence in the same room with someone, we are communing with that artist when they're performing on stage. So we are sharing the same atmosphere, sharing the same breath. I know that may be kind of gross, but we are sharing the same breath. So as they're doing it, we're alive with them. And I think that's what we love about live theater. That's different. I mean, film is great and it can do lots of things, but it in essence is old film was light being passed through a celluloid cell, projected on a screen. That light bounced off the screen and then going into our eyes and processing. In stage, we're seeing it bounce right off of the actor and coming to us. So there's less middleman in the live process.
It's a lot more intimate in the way that it feels to be in theater, in a theater with the actors right in front of you, because you're there in that weird state of vulnerability of seeing a person who can be acting genuinely angry on stage and feeling invested in the story of those emotions.
Yeah.
And even if you're watching something on film, while you can empathize with that from a distance, you can't feel that sense of tension, at least in my experience, that you can get from being right next to the stage or looking as stage in the same building.
I think the potential for empathy goes way up when you're in the presence of the person feeling the emotions.
Absolutely. One of the other things during my work with theater, one of the things that I found was very interesting was how much more theater works off of the audience's imagination and investment in the story that completely, not as ignored in film, but doesn't have to be as focused on in film, where you're less absorbed in trying to, your disbelief is more removed in theater than it is required to be removed in film.
Yeah, well, and yes, you're right, and I think that idea of I'm trying to think here on this, Will. So the investment of the person, because the actor on stage does change based off of the audience. I mean, if you're a performer, you recognize that when there's a quiet house, it's harder. You're working extra hard to really make sure, and they may be loving it. They just may be a quieter audience, and we have those that happen. That after the show, that performers are backstage going, "This was just horrible. They hated us. They didn't like it at all." And then as I'm standing out front and watching the audience leave, and they're going, "This was so good. This is one of the best shows I've ever seen." And it's like, okay, well, give back to the actors. And they were. I mean, they still enjoyed the show. They just weren't as loud in their expressiveness of it. And so, yes, the audience does participate in it. It is also that aspect that you don't know exactly what's going to happen in film, or in stage, because it's going to change each night. I can go back and watch. I haven't watched Raising Arizona in probably about a year and a half. But if I go pull it up right now and watched it, I would be watching the same thing that I saw last time. Now, I may perceive it slightly different because my life has changed and I've had new experiences, but the film is the same. Every night of a theater performance, a live performance, is going to be different. Not only because of the audience, but also as two actors. You and I are in a scene together, and you've had just a miserable day, or you've had a really great day. And so you say that line slightly different. And if I'm a good actor, I hear that, and I have to change the way I say my line, because we're not acting in a vacuum. We're sharing with each other. And so it's going to be different for an audience every night. And that's why sometimes in our shows you have, not only because they're friends on stage, but you have people that come and watch a show every night because they want to see how different it is. And I think that's kind of a unique thing for theater, in that there is an investment of the audience. And there's also a little bit of reason why I think sometimes people maybe not like theater as much, because you do have to work a little bit more than you do in film. You can sit back and relax. You can sit back and scroll on your phone, but a lot of times in the theater, because they're present, there's an investment. I've got to do I've got to be alert and be present.
Kind of the rule of reciprocity, and
yeah,
a little moment of, hey, we're going to be here and pay attention to you. Please be here and pay attention to us. That
absolutely.
You can't really feel that sense with film. One of the things that I've found interesting about my experience in experiencing theater and experiencing film, in my life, film was always a thing that we did together to watch. Like, we're going to watch a movie, it's fun. But I never felt like I was present with the people while I was watching the film. We were absorbed in the film itself, which is great, and it's one of the fun parts about film. But whenever me and my family went to see a theater show, there was still this investment in the theater show, but there was also this sense of, oh, my feelings and their feelings about the same moment are more in tune than it is with a film.
Sure. And even with the audience, I mean, the audience gets involved. And if you look at the evolution of what's happening in this kind of entertainment, so from live theater, where you're very present because you're connected with not only the actors on stage, but you're connected with your fellow audience members. Then you move to film, where you're less connected with the actors because it's all been pre-canned, but you're still connected to the audience. That's why you go to see the Avengers movie or whatever, and when suddenly Captain America grabs his hammer and he says, Avengers assemble, everybody goes nuts in the theater, because it's like, I've been waiting for him to say that so long, right? And so you get those moments where it's so much fun to be in an audience where everybody is so engaged and people are cheering and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But we've evolved even from that. So we've gone from where we've lost the connection with the actors, but we still got it with the audience, to now where we stream in our own house by ourselves. We don't have a connection with the actors or an audience, and so now we're even multitasking. So we're playing a video game while we're watching the film, and we're less attached to what's going on in it. So it's more comfortable, it's more easy, it's more accessible. At the same time, the process is becoming diluted, I think, in the storytelling and the receiving of that story. Yeah,
it's becoming something that can be more mass consumed and mass produced to create this sense of, I'm being entertained, even though I'm not at all focusing on what's entertaining me.
Yeah. And at the same time, outside of films, like TV shows that are people binge TV shows, And so now you
Guilty.
got where and so now you've got where you spend hours. I mean, like a whole day and a half or whatever, that you just stayed up and watched a whole series in one long binge. And you find that heard a report not too long ago that was talking about people's depression levels after finishing a binge, because you've invested so much with these characters, and now when it's done, it's almost like a friend has left or somebody has moved away. I don't have that connection with somebody anymore, and I've invested so much time and effort and emotion into their life. So it's weird that we're diluting, but at the same time, with like binge watching and things, some ways we're also heightening the connection that we have with the art form.
This ends the first section of my interview with Mr. Matheny. Next Friday will be the continuation, where I ask him more about his relationship with films. I hope you return next week to hear the continued interview. Thank you for traveling with me on this episode of Fantasia Way. I hope you got as much enjoyment out of it as I did, and I would love for you to come back this way whenever you have any desire to understand more about storytelling and the different ways we as storytellers can use our imagination. Would you kindly like, comment, and subscribe so you can keep up with our travels through this world of imagination, and I would love to see you again soon. You can find Fantasia Way on YouTube, and you can find me at Blue Sky at Chris Crossroads FW, or on Tumblr under the same name, at Chris Crossroads FW. Thank you for listening.